Welcome to Mace PvP for Dummies. In case you're stupid and you don't know what the mace even does, simply put, it deals more damage to an opponent the higher you are and the higher that you fall from them. This is infinite, meaning that you can do an infinite amount of damage, and if you manage to successfully land a hit, your full damage gets reset, so you take no full damage. Showing this, I can basically kill the warden in one shot. Okay, it might be needing a little bit more height. But now it's dead. There are 3 enchantments for the mace. There's Density 5, Breach 4, and Windburst 3, with their varying levels. Density allows you to deal more damage per block with the mace, which is what I use to fight the warden. Breach 4 allows you to ignore 60% of armor, which is very good for PvP, and I'll show you how to use it later. And Windburst basically launches you up if you hit a mob. Like, this has Windburst 1, and it launches me upwards. The first thing I'm going to teach you is sword swapping, which is basically the act of taking the attack damage and the attack speed of whatever item you're holding and transferring it onto the mace. And how you do this is you have the sword or the axe, and you have to hit the opponent, but you have to switch to the mace right before you click. This basically allows you to deal a lot more damage with the mace. For example, I'm going to show you me just using the mace to deal damage. I did 3.5 hearts of damage. However, if I sword swap, I do about 6 hearts, which is almost double. One of the main things people do in mace is boost up with a wind charge and hit with a netherite axe, because statistically the netherite axe does more damage than the netherite sword, and when you're boosting up like this, it simply does more damage to use the netherite axe. The next thing you need to learn is how to PvP on land with Breach. Basically, when you use a strength potion and you crit out an opponent, it'll do 2 hearts of damage. However, if you sword swap with Breach, because just as I told you before, Breach ignores 60% of damage to armor, this means that I can do 8 attack damage with strength 2 and ignore 60% of their armor, which does over half of their damage if they're wearing blast protection. And if you use an axe, it does even more damage. This is essential for PvP with the mace. You don't even need to jump when you use the Breach mace. You can just slap him and it'll do more damage compared to the sword. One cool thing about the mace is even if its damage swing animation is at its lowest, it can still do damage per block. Meaning that if I spam click, you can still do heaps of damage, which means if you're a bit of a noob at Minecraft, you can basically spam click or even use an auto clicker to do crazy damage. However, this is mainly useful for when you're going really high up and when you fall down quickly, where timing it can be difficult. That's where spam clicking is really useful. One really important tip that I have for you is to turn on hitboxes, which is F3 and B. This allows you to see the exact hitbox that your opponent has, so that way you can really accurately hit them with the mace. And with Lunar Client and stuff like that, you can go to hitbox and you can change the color of player hitboxes, so that way they're a lot more clear and you don't confuse them with other hitboxes, like of items and mobs. So basically, yeah, the basic fundamentals of mace PvP is wind charge up and hit them with your axe. And also you should carry a shield to block their mace attacks, and use sword swap in order to fight them. Or axe swap, as I'm doing right here. And when you get low, use pearls to get away from them. And if you want, you can wind charge boost, which is basically to do that. It launches your pearl a little bit farther away. One more advanced PvP technique that is helpful is that you can throw your ender pearl into your opponent's bodies, which can be helpful, and it's what a lot of pros do. See, I just did it then. And he's dead. And that's also one thing that you saw right there, is that there's a little glitch where you can't actually throw a pearl onto their top half of their body. The only way for the pearl to register is if it hits their lower half, their legs, their toes, and their feet, and that's how the body will hit your opponent. However, let's say that your opponent is using their shield a little bit too much, and you don't know what to do because you can't sword swap against them. That's where you should incorporate the stun slam, which is basically when you boost up and use your axe to stun their shield mid-air, and then you swap to the mace, density 1, and click right before you hit the ground, and it should disable their shield and do damage to them. Just like that. And as you saw, it did about 4.5 hearts of damage, and it will do more damage the higher you go. However, it'll be a lot more difficult the higher you go. Or if you want to take your opponent by surprise, then you can do what's called a backstab, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's where you boost up behind them and hit them where their shield isn't shielding, which is pretty effective if you know how to do it. The next thing I'm going to teach you is how to end a pearl catch, or pearl catch. Basically, wind charges don't have a curvature. You can throw a wind charge and they'll go straight ahead forever. However, ender pearls curve downwards. And so, basically, you can throw an ender pearl up and throw a wind charge to catch it. This allows you to go upwards, and you can then use the mace on someone pretty easily, and it's a way to throw your enemies off. If you're in a fight, you can do this, boom. This can also be done in a curvature motion, if you can understand muscle memory. However, it does take a little bit of practice to do, but it can be done consistently. Now, using an elytra without rockets is basically unheard of in SMPs. However, if you want to practice the mace tier list kit, where an elytra is included, then a cool tip to know is that you can use wind charges to boost yourself up like this. Say your opponent's right there and you miss, you can just boost yourself back up and go back to fighting him. And just so you know, this is really hard to do on single player because of how wind charges work, and so basically it's better to practice this mechanic on servers. One important thing to note when using the mace with the elytra is that you can't actually do any falling damage with the mace while you're in the elytra gliding mode. The way you fix this, say if you're mace PvPing, is to have the chest plate in your hotbar, left click, and all the full damage you had that you were in the elytra mode with will add on to when you switch out of it, which is pretty handy. As you get better at mace PvP, you can incorporate multiple different things into your playstyle, like this. Oh dear, shoot up. He couldn't do it in time. And he's dead. And that's basically all the basics that you need to know about the mace. But the most important thing is that practice makes perfect. You need to practice the mace to be good at the mace. You need to practice the sword swapping, and you need to practice all of those things if you want to be good at the mace. That's how you get good at the mace. However, I hope this guide teaches you everything that you need to know about how the mace works and how you can utilize it to your full advantage. Thank you for watching. See you later.